All right, you should be all set this time.
All right, we're about to find out. I'm not hearing volume, brother.
All right, you should be all set this time.
Oh, wait. All right, we're about to find out. Okay. I think we're good, Jen.
Awesome.
Not hearing volume, brother. All right, give me a second.
All right, you should be all set this time.
Oh, wait. All right, we're about to find out.
I think we're getting some feedback.
That was Raymond's computer.
Oh, yeah, that was my computer. I had it. All right. So we're just going to go forward, and we're going to
you need to start with the intro. You need to start just like we were starting from the beginning.
Oh, we're live already. We're live. We went through the intro, Jen, and I was checking the Facebook, and that's what I was seeing. So, hi, everybody. What an evening. See what happens when we try to get good people on the show, and you won't. So, I don't know how long everybody was watching me in complete silence, but basically I was trying to explain that this is how bad whatever forces that are aligned against us don't want us to speak, me and Jen, on a platform where people can hear what's really going on with these DCF child traffickers. Because I went to work today, got stranded. I'm in a motel, in a conference room. This was a day we chose to go back live. Jen was going to come on. I know how much Jen hates to be late. And so stranded or not at work, she's like, I got to do the show. So here we are. And then we get on and nobody can hear us. So hopefully everybody can hear us now. Thank you for joining this episode of We Hold These Truths. We had some technical difficulties prior, and this is not user error. I'm telling you, there's some spiritual stuff going on here. We got an important message that certain entities don't want people to hear, but we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep pushing through. So tonight we have Jennifer Winn. And Jen, I think I can see. Oh, I hear you. And I see you. So I think we're good.
Can you tag Connie for goalie regularly?
Right. If anybody.
I think it's regularly, right?
I think you just said her name wrong. Ted, you need to come on right now. What is her name?
This is Ann again.
Yep, Ann is on the. Oh, Connie regularly. Do you want me to?
See?
Are you guys ready for Ann to come on?
Sure.
Not yet.
Ann,
Okay.
No,
you hear
we're
us?
not ready for her. We're not ready for Ann.
You're not ready for Ann? All right, I'll transfer her, but I'll keep her on hold.
No, keep her. I have to know. Ann, can you hear us?
Not yet. I have to transfer her first.
She's already messaged.
Your caller is now on hold. To return to the call,
Ann. You're on hold.
Okay, let's go back to your spiel, Raymond.
No, my spiel is I'm just glad we finally made it. Here we are. People can hear us. Ann's on hold. So we're good. And we have Jen here. And Jen, we're going to start this over. Here's the reset. So you've been pretty quiet for a while now. And you were quiet for about 15 minutes while we were sitting here talking, but nobody could hear us.
I know,
Let's try this again.
Yeah.
How you been?
Well, I would say that it's been rough. It's been rough for me. Losing a grandchild that I never got to see.
Sorry for your
never
loss.
really even had the time to absorb, grieve, do all of those things, working my tail off to hold down a full-time job, run my company, run for office, advocate for families. It drug me to a point after the election and the letdown of the the cycle that just keeps repeating itself because people think that if they do the same thing, somehow we're going to get something different.
Okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's back up. Back up a little bit.
Okay.
Because there's people that are going to see this that have no idea what you're talking about. So you said the election. What election? What
So I ran for state representative. Greg Orman ran for governor. Jim Thompson was running for a congressional seat.
So you had your own campaign, and you were heavily involved in 2 other campaigns.
Yes.
And things.
And they all lost.
Go.
The 3 people that I could comfortably put my name behind, knowing that they would absolutely do the right thing. They would forego the buddy system, they couldn't be bought, they couldn't be paid off, they couldn't be silenced. And, we can't recognize them. And that includes myself. And yet somehow people expect me and everybody else that's out here willing to fight to make change, and it doesn't happen from the outside. So obviously we've seen that. And so for me, I just went into a depression that I've never really experienced before like that. And I think that, dealing with I know a lot of the fathers that I have had the privilege to march with, stand with, like Cash Jackson.
Which was another campaign that you were supportive of. Maybe not
correct.
As ingrained with, but you really, really wanted to see someone like Cash Jackson.
I did. Because again, it comes back down to common sense, which we lack, especially in Kansas. So, and again, I was against the woman at, running for governor because of what I had already dealt with her on the oversight committee for DCF. So, and things that I said before now coming to fruition. Governor Kelly says that she's going to, it just takes time. It just takes time to save all of these kids. When I asked her point blank, why is it you're so worried about foster care, but you're not worried about the cause? You're not worried about why the children are being taken. Her response to me was, well, it just takes time. Well, unfortunately for our little 6-year-old that ran away from her foster home the 3rd time, died 3 days ago.
Right. I heard about that. Yeah.
So she didn't have child. Time for Governor Kelly to, I don't know why. It doesn't take time to make this stop, but it does, I guess, if it affects their pocketbook.
But let's back up again. Okay, so Governor Kelly, she is the new governor of Kansas to replace Sam Brownbackistan Brownback, who we know was a puppet, a criminal. We tried to get him indicted, Jen. You and me, and a bunch of other people, a lot of good people. One of my defendants, Chris Kobach, hindered. But so you were supporting a candidate. His name was Greg Orman. You were really invested. You were out there pouring your own time, your own money, telling people, I've had conversations with Greg. I know Greg. I know if we get Greg into office, there is going to be a significant impact on children and families. But I want people to understand, because they don't know you like I know you. They don't know the backstory. If someone's watching this, they have no idea who you are. You really helped our family through our DCF crisis. You've run for office multiple times. You're a business owner. You're a grandmother, many grandchildren, political activist, cannabis activist. You are a very busy human being. And you felt like we had momentum. You felt like we were starting to change things. There was a pivotal election that, unfortunately, the people that we agreed with you that we thought should have been in office are not in office. And so we have to deal with Laura Kelly. So we're going to talk about Laura Kelly a little here, but I want people to understand you, because if I would have just listened to what you just said, I would have said, oh, Jen, she said she was depressed because she lost an election. No. You understand the impact of these losses on children and families in the state of Kansas. You understand the corruption that's going to continue because these people that you understood would do their job and hold
Correct.
these people accountable are not in office. So
Correct.
Jen wasn't depressed because Jen didn't get into office. These people didn't get into office. It's about, we're trying to change this.
Yes.
And it's not changing. And here we had a critical chance and it fell short. So let's talk about Laura Kelly. What is your issue with Laura Kelly? You said you talked to her, you confronted her about changing DCF, and she said, well, it takes time. But what do you know about her? What is your history with her? What is your beef with her?
Well, first off, I mean, I really didn't, I didn't know the woman from Adam. So understand that when she popped up as a gubernatorial candidate, I was totally caught off guard. I did not see that coming. She's been a legislator for 14 years and nobody really knew who she was because she really didn't do anything. She may be a nice lady. I don't know. Maybe she's naive and she doesn't believe the statistics and the facts that are put in front of her, but they're real. And when I identified a perjury case out of Miami County, that I have in black and white, I mean, there is no question. It's not even a process. It's perjury by the KVC worker.
KVC, who is?
KVC. Okay, so let me back up. Let me just give an intro, general blanket intro, so people understand. I became an advocate 5 years ago, really full time, because I don't do anything halfway, and that's probably some of why I've been dealing with what I've been dealing with, because I fight so hard for these families. I've never personally been affected, and I have taken beatings, multiple beatings, social media. Bricks through my windows with death threats, rubber band to them. I mean, you name it. I've dealt with it. When I stood up for Raymond and Amelia Schwab, I was raked over the coals by activists. Raymond was this meth head. Well, that was just what they wanted to project, but that wasn't really the facts. So, a lot of times I have a case right now where I have other activists who are calling me a supporter of child abusers and yada, yada, yada. But what they don't understand is how much information I actually have that they don't. There's sometimes in my world, I can't necessarily release something. Look at the Williams case. I wanted to release stuff so many times, but it's all about timing. You have to protect the children and you have to protect the parents. And here in Kansas, that's, if they post about their children on Facebook, they go to jail. I mean, that's the reality of it. So, I'm an activist because what I recognized after the first mother came to me, who drove me crazy for 3 weeks, came to me, brought me all of her data. I researched it that night till almost 2 a.m. in the morning, was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 5, ready to call mom and be like, you need to meet me at my office, because I thought it was an isolated case. Once I went public with that story and I really drove the public's awareness around that story, it opened the floodgates for people to cry for help. And I'm not a Facebook keyboard advocate. I'm in your face. I'm holding 15-foot banners at your freaking door. I'll come outside your sidewalk if I have to. I am not.
And I think, there's many people that can vouch for that, Jen.
Yeah, but that's what it takes. It takes
you are out there. You are just
am.
not a social media presence. You put your time, and we can vouch for that as a family. You are very engaged personally, financially, spiritually, and returning our getting our children returned, and that's takes a toll. I mean, it took a toll on me as a parent, and the energy you put into people. So, we try to change this. Go ahead.
That much, and whereas we have all of these so-called advocates, but really all you see them is on social media. Right. You can't get them out to a protest. You can't get them out to the Capitol. You can't get them to do anything but be on the keyboard. And that is not going to bring change. So, when you help so many families and you continually go through that pain, I mean, Raymond, I cried over your family. The pain was so real to me watching you and watching Amelia. And I will say this, and Amelia probably might get upset with me, but it's the truth. there was a day, because, you know, Raymond and Amelia stayed at my house multiple times when they were here. They needed a place that they didn't have to pay for. And there was a morning that I woke up and I heard, you know, Amelia crying. And that is a devastating emotion for someone on the outside, let alone the mother whose arms are empty, the father whose heart is broken.
Oh, yeah.
It was
I
tough.
mean, you. What can you say as a husband? Yeah, Amelia's my wife. The powerlessness. What can I comfort with? We are absent our children. We are suffering but pushing through. That's the battle that so many parents right now are facing, and
but they don't. But the public,
people don't understand that.
They don't see that, you know. And it's funny because sometimes, you know, I've had people say to me, well, I would propose the question, well, what if somebody came to your door with an ex parte order and said, we're taking your children? And most responses are quite general. Well, they'll be met with a 45. Well, they were over my dead body. But the reality is they do it every day.
They do it every day, because when they come to your door, they're so good at manipulating people that someone that, well, I'd come to the door at the 45. When they're faced with it, goes, wait a minute, this can't be happening. And there's a sense of denial. Yes. And then as they're going through the initial process, they're thinking, you know what? These people that came to my door are crazy. But as soon as I get in front of this judge and I tell them what's really going on, this is all going to change and everyone's going to see the light. And then by the time they're so engaged in the process and they've already got their kids 10 steps away from them, they realize, I'm in trouble.
Yep. And then it's too late.
They utilize the denial to steal people's kids, because most people think they don't take kids away from good parents. They only, if they're showing up, there's a reason. And we know that's not true.
That is not true. So for me, it was 5 years of being out in the field, making banners, standing over highways, being at DCF's door. You know, we did 3 years consecutively of Fools No More, where I drove to Topeka and I rallied 300 plus people together, and we tried to get our voices heard. And the message was very clear: stop kidnapping our children for money. It's real clear. And to fail, I'm not a good person to fail. You know, when I started my business 16 years ago, I took a huge hit my first year, and the CPA I had at the time came to me and she said, you know what? I mean, you probably should just quit, and you can make so much more money going to work for one of the bigger competitors. Just throw in the towel. And it was not in me. I'm not a quitter. That's not who I am. So I pushed harder, and I kicked harder, and I dug more trenches, and I sold more jobs, and I was determined to dig my way out. I still dig my way out almost every day, but I did it. You know what I mean? Here I am 16 years later, and I have a $2.5 million company that does provide me a paycheck. It provides me a living.
So backing up that though, where do you think you failed? Where do you think the failure intersected with this process of you trying to enact change in Kansas, DCF?
I think for me, I still have children that are dying. I still have children that are being ripped away from their families needlessly because mom tested positive for THC. Nobody deserves to have their child taken for THC. And anybody who fucking thinks that belongs in a cage. And I'll say that to your face. I'll stand out in front of your home. It doesn't matter. But I failed these children. And that, in and of itself, is an overwhelming, crushing feeling to give so much, and it still is like you never existed. that is where the depression came in. So here I fought for all of these good people because I knew in my heart they would save these kids. I knew that they would do the right thing for the people. And we can't get that. We can't get people to think for themselves. They're, they think they have to be Hatfield or McCoy, and we lost all of them. All of those great people that I personally was pulling for lost. And so the overwhelming feeling of failure wasn't about my own loss. It was about the loss of the 6-year-old little girl that died 3 days ago. It was about the loss of the families that have been destroyed and not able to be put back together. I mean, that is what drives me. And, so I've had to endure it in all of that. I lost my grandchild that I didn't get to see until he was gone because of parental alienation by a so-called advocate of DCF. I mean, and hurt, the whole thing, just the whole year took its toll on me like never before.
And because, and this is what people need to understand, because I get it too. And being a family that's engaged in the battle, you don't necessarily have the volume of people reaching out, especially when we've been trolled so much, whatever, saying, we want your advice, we want your help. But for you, people constantly saying, help me, help me, help me. And you're getting documents and you're seeing this rampant corruption in Kansas DCF and can completely understand. It was a very, very bold thing for you to come on this evening because this was a very, very recent series of events. So the question becomes, okay, so you come on tonight. I've talked to you the other day and I'm like, okay, Jen, you've been really quiet lately. I know that this was very hard for you. Come on the show. You said you would. So some things have been transpiring and you recognize that despite these losses, because and I know that this wasn't Jen failing. This wasn't these candidates failing. It's every citizen's responsibility to hold these government individuals that are given a public trust accountable for the trust they're getting. And
they're too lazy for that. They're too lazy.
I don't even know if it's lazy. I think
it's laziness and complacency. Period.
Some of it, and some of it's busyness. Some of it's we live in a society where the value of the dollar has plunged so much that most people have to work 2, 3, 4 jobs to friggin' even pay their rent.
Hold on. I am still working 8 to 12 hours a day. Sometimes I was up until 3 a.m. this morning watching the weather because I handle snow removal. I still work and perform at the same level that I always have, excluding the fact that I also now advocate. There is no excuse.
But you're a different human being, and you need to understand this, Jen, that we all have to grow. We all have to grow. Like there was a period of time that me, just like you, I knew DCF was bad. I knew that if they were called on you, it probably wasn't a good thing. I heard stories about how they were victimizing families, but how many years did you and I ignore? Because here's something I found out tonight. Let's roll back to Laura Kelly. So we got Laura Kelly in the office right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you're coming out and starting to speak about these things because you're recognizing that even if we didn't accomplish our goals this election season, somebody still has to talk about this. Somebody still has to hold these people accountable because now that we know, we would be the bad ones if we walk away and say, you know what? I gave it my best. I'm done. Granted, with any kind of activism, with any kind of human rights intervention, there has to be self-care. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to not be the savior of the world and take some time to recenter. But the reality remains that we've been given this knowledge so we can go out and confront these evils in the world, which is why we're doing this show. We're challenging people to wake up. This is happening. This is real.
Well, and I will say this. Education is key. I absolutely agree with that. But in 15 years ago, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Messenger. 20 years ago, we didn't have cell phones and text messaging. That was only for the rich. Today is a different era, and there is no excuse for ignorance today.
All right. I'll give you that. We have tools that allow us to connect and come together like never before, which sometimes gives people intellectual laziness. But I want to roll into something because I want to challenge you in something. I didn't get to share this information with you. So me and Jen were talking. I want to tell people. Me and Jen were talking while we were trying to figure all these technical difficulties out. And I was like, look, I've been doing some research because let me tell you something. She didn't know who Laura Kelly was, but I did. And my wife did. Because back in 2016, I went on a 21-day hunger strike on the Kansas Capitol steps to raise awareness to this issue and that they had my child locked up illegitimately through fraud in a psychiatric ward to retaliate against us, to force medicate him and to perpetuate their fraud and get all the federal incentives handed out to all their buddies like Pathways in Topeka, Kansas. So we go on this hunger strike. And during that period of time, my wife and I and Jennifer and Ann, who was on the phone, who hasn't got on yet, but all these people were going to all these senators and representatives with a letter that stated exactly what was going on and what was happening. And often we seen Laura Kelly. She never talked to us. We tried to talk to everyone. We only had a handful of senators even reach out to us or representatives. One was Mike O'Donnell. He sponsored us to be out there. We still appreciate that to this day. And the other was a guy that we found out worked for DCF funding and was trying to set us up. And so out of all those reps, but we always saw Laura Kelly in the distance. And I pointed her out to my wife and I said, she always looks sad. She always has this expression, but she never had the courage to come and talk to us. So when she's watching a Kansas citizen starve himself on her capital and doesn't even have the courage or integrity to sit down and look at our evidence, I don't know if I believe what she's talking about.
Look,
so prior to becoming governor,
let
me give a little more history, Jen. Hold on. Okay. Prior to becoming governor, she was part of this oversight committee that you helped push, that I helped push, that Representative Osley got to happen, even though he came to us at One of Your Fools No More before it was even a reality and said, Jen, DCF is fighting me. Phyllis Gilmore's fighting me. This may not happen, but it happened.
Yep.
Then they eliminate all citizens like yourself from being on that panel, being on that committee, which should have had normal people. And then we get people like Phyllis Gilmore and blah, blah, blah. So Laura Kelly starts rattling her sabers, I believe, because she knew she was going to run for governor. And she had to put a showing forward that she cared about these kids. Because I'm about to reveal something to you that's going to be real interesting, Jen. And it all clicks for me now because you shared something with me that I want you to share with these people that are watching right now. Because we have this microcosm of Kansas that we want to show about. But Phyllis Gilmore said Kansas is the safest DCF program in the nation. So if that's true, after we share with you what's going on, then this whole country better be damn afraid. Okay? So she's rattling her sabers and talking about DCF destroying documents and all this stuff. Now, you pushed for Greg Orman. I believe he would have changed DCF. I believe you would have played a role in that. Laura Kelly gets in. This is a woman that both me and my wife feel very uneasy about. You know some things about. So she gets rid of. So here's your deal. You talked to her at some point in time, and you said, Laura Kelly, this needs to change. And she told you it takes time. Correct?
Well, yes, that is correct. But first she said, her first response to me was, and I walked right up to her at a forum when she was running. After I corrected her and shut down the entire dining room when she tried to pretend that Greg Orman wasn't a candidate. That pissed me off. So then I went up to her after the event and I said, I want to know, I think my exact words were right along the lines of, I want to know why it is you're so worried about the 77 missing children from foster care, but you're not worried about the 96.4% that's being removed from their families entirely without any evidence.
And we know that. We know that because they admitted it publicly when fighting me. 96% of their cases are unsubstantiated.
Yes, I believe CGA Online covered Teresa Freed's statistics that she spewed.
And it's in my federal pleadings right now as I'm suing them. So it's out there. Yes. 96% of Kansas removals are without substantiation of abuse.
Yes, and that's 7,000 children. Now, I can tell you that we have increased over the last 10 years. It's almost double. It's disgusting. It really is.
Yeah, because it was only like 6,100 when they took my kids. Now I think we're getting nearer to 8,000.
We're 70. I think 73 was last year. So yeah, it goes up every year.
I think it's gone a little higher. So she tells you walk up at a forum, 96%.
And first thing
thousands and
well,
thousands.
Nothing I say to you, Jennifer, is going to suffice you.
That's what she said to you.
That was her first and I recorded it.
So she knew who you were.
Oh, she knows exactly who I am.
Because she knows who we are. Laura Kelly, if you're watching this, we're not going to quit. And we're going to be on your, Ted, I wish you could beat this, ass your whole 4 years. Because we don't believe you. We don't believe you.
We've also got, anyway, so let me go on. So then she says to me, and I said, but children are being harmed. And she said, but it takes time. I had to walk away at that point because, my grandma would always say, if you say that again, I'm going to backhand you. I wanted to backhand. For every child that suffered, we have children, guys. I don't know if you understand this, but we have children being adopted to child molesters. And I don't negate the fact that we have completely, recklessly put license in the hands of incompetent and criminal people. I don't doubt that. We have girls that are adopted to single men that have been enduring rape for 3 years because St. Francis and KVC said they were great and DCF just rubber stamps it like the judges. There is no justice, but the bottom line is she's focused on foster care. Well, we need to revamp foster care. And see, here's what they're doing. They want to revamp foster care. They want to bring in more fosters because they have no intention to stop taking the kids of the poor people. They have no intention to stop. None. They've even gone as far as to come and turn my granddaughter in for truancy in first grade and thought that they were going to come to the school and talk to her. Well, I had attorneys rolling. I don't play that game. And now my grandchildren are homeschooled.
A lot of people don't realize that. Let me give you an update. In the state of Kansas, and I believe they're doing this to supplement their budget, but if your kids are truant or if they determine, because your daughter's case recently started on their error.
Correct.
The school made an attendance mistake, and here comes the DCF threats. Yes. So if the school makes a mistake and you're a great parent, guess what? DCF can come to your home. And if you don't think they'll look at your beautiful kids and say, we could really traffic them for some good money and they won't take them, we'll be here for you when you need to fight for them. That's all I got to say. Because it's coming for you. But here, let me read a few things. I don't want to interrupt you, but I was just looking up Laura Howard, okay, who Kelly appointed to be the head of DCF. And I thought, this is kind of strange. And she just has that aura. And I don't know, there's certain people that have been in this work for a long time that I believe are trafficking kids. When I look at them and I look at their pictures, they look like friggin' devils. And I'm not saying Laura Howard's a devil, but I'm saying I'm finding out some things about this woman that makes me great. Because you told me something. I want you to repeat it, Jen. I called you a couple of days ago and I said, okay, Laura Kelly's really in the press right now, but what do you think her real agenda is? And what did you tell me that you believe her agenda was in terms of DCF? Do you remember?
No, I don't even know. I don't even know if I remember that conversation.
You were saying that you believe that they were setting up to take more children.
Oh, yeah, that's what I just said. I just said that. They are focusing on getting fosters under control because, you know, we have children buried in concrete, dying, getting hit by cars, running away from foster homes.
So they can more effectively
so
steal
they
more
can
children.
take more kids, period.
Okay. So I start looking up, Laura, and you're talking about this grief that you have because all these children are suffering. So I look up Laura Howard and just Google this. So Kansas DCF used to be called Kansas SRS.
Yes.
Let me tell you why they changed their name. Because kids were dying. Because they were getting sued all over the place for neglect. I want to read something to you I just found. Okay, this was written back in the 90s. And it's talking about problems in Kansas SRS. And it's saying, let's see, the SRS simply stonewalled and ignored its reform commitments almost completely. That sounds familiar. Didn't we just hear the Kansas DCF failed in every single, almost all of their audit purposes? And we'll get to
all
audit.
three phases of the audit, they miserably failed. Failed.
Okay, and I'm going to share something about these statements, but I'm going to read these, then I want to tell you something about them. Okay, so they ignored their reform commitments almost completely, like Kansas DCF is doing right now. The SRS child protection system, even by its own criteria, flunked audit after audit. They were failing audits as the system only got worse.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, the SRS conceded it had failed to meet 80% of its own criteria. They had a child that was murdered in a meth house. They had a child that had been missing for 10 years. And the foster parents for 10 years were still collecting adoption incentives, even though that child had been gone for a decade. Okay? It got so bad. Oh, I just want to read this whole thing. I'm going to email this to you. It got so bad that the ACLU sued the state of Kansas. We've contacted the ACLU. They don't even really get involved in this stuff anymore. But these people were so negligent and they were jacking stuff up so bad that the ACLU got involved. And guess who the assistant deputy was?
Don't tell me.
Laura Howard. Laura Howard was the assistant deputy of Kansas SRS. And here, let me read something about Deputy Secretary Laura Howard of SRS, which proves that Laura Kelly is trying to get a professional at doing this.
Kidnapper.
So in May 20th of 2011.
I hope every one of you that voted for that bitch is happy.
Calm down. This is family friendly. Okay. No more cuss. We don't got the bleep yet. Okay. May 20th, 2011.
You better get that bleep button and tell me stuff like that.
You might bleep after this. So it says this. Howard, who has been with SRS since 1996. So when Kansas got sued by the ACLU, when they were so egregious in death of children, fraud, failing their audits, to where they had to change their name from SRS to DCF, Howard was there. She was the assistant deputy. She also was over Medicaid. She was neck deep in all of this. Okay. She is a bachelor.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to read this. Okay. So while at SRS, Howard has a hand in closing 2 state hospitals and privatizing much of the state's child welfare system. So not only was she the one responsible for not responsible, she was in the middle of it getting jacked up. She was also the one who assisted in transitioning it to these private contractors that are trafficking children in the state of Kansas, Jen. And that is why you can't quit. That's why you can't quit.
I'm like boiling. Like
I told you I discovered some stuff in research.
This makes a preacher want to swear like a sailor. Because
so
right now, nothing good.
That you thought that Laura Kelly, and my wife told me that she didn't trust this woman, that she believed this woman had connections with cultic groups and other things. And I'm not even going to get into that Order of the Eastern Star stuff, but she didn't trust her. And now she's wavering the saber the hardest to change DCF while putting people in positions of power that were involved in DCF being so bad that they had to change their name.
Yes, they did.
And I'll tell you something else, Laura Kelly. We're not done. We're not done.
No, I think we need to ramp. It's, you know, man, these people.
Because they didn't win, Jen. They didn't win. And this is what people need to understand. Yes, the evil is great. And that is why those of us that are aware, no matter what defeats we suffer, no matter what challenges that we're facing, no matter how discouraged we get, no matter how big the problems seem to be, we need to stop letting these people win.
But they do. And they do because people, I mean, I dealt with it more probably because I had so many different people I was so pushing for, but I'm angry. I am angry. And I have every right to be angry. Because I'm the one out here helping these families. I'm the one out there putting houses together and baby beds and spending my money.
I've seen you do the jobs that DCF and St. Francis are supposed to be doing.
Correct.
And you're doing it to stop those agencies that are supposed to be doing it from stealing the people's kids. Or out of your own pocket. I get it. I get it, Jen. And a lot of people need to understand that this really is a battle. And I think we're going to start getting sort of.
I'm trying to compute all of that right now.
I know, it blows my mind.
My blood is boiling, and I'm afraid my mouth is wanting to run so bad, and I just have to not do that on your family orientation.
So it's going to be your show. So I want everybody to know, how are we doing? Hey, Ted, come on for a second. Let's talk to you. We're going to talk for Ted.
I want to bring Ann. I can't wait to hear what Ann thinks.
Ann's still waiting.
Is Ann still on hold?
She is. You want me to put her on?
Do we have any other callers currently?
Nope, just her. So, Ann, you're on with us.
So people can call in, guys. We got about 15 more minutes of the show, but we'll open up the phones if people want to call in because we got to give Jen a second to breathe and answer some questions. But do want to bring Ann on. So for those of you that don't know, Ann she is the invisible backbone of helping families. She's the one that when Jen is helping someone and says, I'm busy running my business, I need you to go to court for this person, Ann's the one that goes. Ann is out there doing all the work that everybody else is. She's just not loud like we are.
Oh, she's loud.
She is, but she hates the camera. You get her on the camera and she just pukes and pees on herself. And we can't let her do that. So go ahead and bring Ann on. Ann, don't throw up because you're public.
She's on, but she might not know she's on. She might be away from her phone, but I can hear static there. She's still there.
Ann, look at that gross apple.
Oh, I know. I'm just shy.
And you're not shy. You served all my defendants. And you were even creative. You served one of them with flowers. So thank you.
I felt like she deserved flowers.
Oh, hey, let's have a laughing moment. So everybody, we want to tell you a story. Ann was my process server. And so we had a caseworker that just was a lying, family friendly, can't say it. And she didn't understand. And she would friendly. Well, we're going to get the bleep capacity. Then you can bleep, but we don't have it yet. So she would lie on the stand and then smile at my wife, Amelia, just, haha, I'm lying. And so we couldn't find her. She was hiding. And we got some information where she lived. So, Ann, because they knew we were coming, how did that go down? Tell us the story real quick.
Well, it was, just after Christmas. So we were just the gift and flower delivery driver. And so we got a beautiful glittery gift bag and put the lawsuit in the gift bag, got a vase from the Dollar Tree with some really ugly flowers, and wrote "You've been served" on the vase. And she was so excited when she opened that door. She was like, "Oh my gosh," until she looked in the bag, and then she was pissed, and she went to videotaping us.
Oh, then she pulled out her camera, trying to be like everybody else that's been filming her. We called her Lion Laura Price. You've been served. Anyways, I shouldn't talk. That was such a funny story. I could see her reaction, just like, because we know that Laura doesn't work for St. Francis anymore, but we're not going to talk about why yet. We're going to talk about it in court, but no, we won't go there. We're going to save some surprises, but Laura, you were a bad girl, and we know about it. Sorry about that. All right. So this is Ann. Ann, what do you think about Howard being the deputy secretary of SRS when they were the worst friggin' agency in the nation?
Okay, well, I was all but screaming at my phone a few minutes ago, because can we get any more corrupt than we already are? This is freaking ridiculous, and this is a family-friendly show, and I'm not allowed to cuss, so I don't really have the correct response for you right now.
And it's really crazy because I was reading other articles. So my question is, why doesn't Laura Kelly like Meyer Kimmel, the lady they just got rid of? Here's what's funny, and I think it's a front because they're going to create a greater fraud down the road. Right now, they're trying to just throw some people under the bus that don't have the same power that they have. But so there are all these grants that were given out to contractors, and Laura Kelly just stopped them. And she said she stopped them because the bidding process wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair. And so I'm putting a hold on them. But then she puts Howard into play, who we know probably isn't the best solution for what's going on in Kansas. And it just makes me wonder, is she holding the grants so she can give them to her buddies? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you didn't do this with my permission. Or do you guys think it's just a front to get people comfortable, to make them believe they're reforming something they have no intention of?
Yeah, I think it is all the way. And I think that time's always going to tell. But I think that she's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And let me tell you something, Governor Kelly, I will happily come public with an apology. I will eat my words 7 ways to Sunday.
Absolutely.
If wrong.
We're wrong. But we're watching you because we think you're full of crap.
She's a puppet. She's a puppet. She's always been a puppet. And let me say this too. I'm going to say this while we're on the whole political spectrum. You know, somebody said to me, I got some hate mail, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I've kind of been avoiding Facebook altogether, but I got some hate mail a couple weeks ago. And it's because I made a comment on Facebook that the blood of the children that have died thus far the responsibility of that belongs to the Republicans. Like it, don't like it, don't care. They've been in power. They have been made aware. It was Michael O'Donnell that pushed this audit. Now, and now, of course, we lost him from the Senate to the county commission. But the reality is they've had the authority. They've had the knowledge. They've had the power.
And they've done nothing, which is, I'm telling you, look, I'm not a politician, but I don't care where I work. If there was a man starving himself to death in my workplace, I'd at least go sit down and look at his evidence. I would at least say, you seem a little crazy, man, but I'm on my lunch break and I want to hear what you have to say because I care or something.
Who goes and does a hunger strike on the Capitol other than a desperate father and mother to get their children? Because it's the only peaceful way that they can absolutely be heard and noticed.
No, it was crazy. And that's why, Jen, that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I've been thinking a lot about that. I look at my kids every day now. For people that are watching this for the first time, we went through a 3-year battle, and my kids are home. And every time we see a horror story, like kids dying or being trafficked out of foster care, we recognize that could have been our children. And some of that would have been our fault. We had a marriage that was in complete implosion. These people like to victimize families in crisis instead of helping them like they're supposed to.
Hey, let me tell you this. Say this, because you said that. Women, this is a message. Well, and even men, because there are some abusive women to their husbands or spouses. You need to hear me. You cannot go for help at a crisis center and have children. If you go to a crisis center for help because you are battered or abused and you have your children, they're going to make a mandated report of child neglect on you.
In Kansas.
In Kansas.
Okay, let's clarify, because I don't want people that are being abused and I don't want to go there.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case other places, but I know in Arizona. It could
be, though. Be cautious, definitely. But in Kansas, you're right.
Don't go. Go other routes.
What were you saying, Ann?
At the Wichita Family Crisis Center, they actually have a home for abused women with children, and they help them to get jobs, have an apartment that is on, gives them clothes, much help. Beyond that, I can't speak for any other ones, but that one I do know. One of our clients was actually being helped there.
I'll vouch for that, because that Wichita Family Crisis Center helped my family. And when Laura Ingalls and Lion Laura Price and the other devils in my lawsuit were trying to get them people to violate our constitutional rights, the Wichita Crisis Center lawyered up and said no.
Well, I can tell you that just going through the incident with my own child on New Year's Eve, most people didn't even know that happened. But you know, my daughter met a guy on the internet, thought he was a great guy, came down for the Christmas holiday, and on New Year's Eve stole my company vehicle and ran it to her house after he beat her down in the front yard. So the first thing they wanted to do was send out one of their contracted psychologists to deal with the crisis my daughter was having. The second question they wanted to know, well, was the kids there? Are there kids? Where are the kids? Do the kid? No.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing, Jen, honestly, because here's the deal. I know there's good people like at the Wichita Crisis Center. There's a few individuals, I won't name them, I don't want heat on them, that I know they care and they help families and they'll defend families. But the sad thing is, we don't know. There's so many devils that come out that work with in Medicaid, doctors, low-income doctors' places, hospitals, children's hospitals, advocates, that when people come to us with legitimate crises, are like, should I call the police? Should I do this? It's hard to advocate for them.
No, here's what I'm seeing. The problem is, and I have another mother right now who's set up for termination in February. The only thing she's guilty of was leaving her abuser. That's it. That's it. No drugs, no criminal history, no psychosis, no nothing. And that is multiple. Ann can tell you, we have multiple occasions where moms are getting terminated because they were an abused wife or an abused spouse. And it's disgusting. And I'm not even comfortable telling women anymore, you're safe to go to the hospital. We just had that article put out in the paper that I posted where it's talking about if you had a child taken 15 years ago from you and you go in today to the hospital and have a baby, expect they're going to come and take your baby.
And so, yeah, and that's the sad thing. And so here we have, I want to reel it back a little because we're going to have to close soon. And I'm glad to see you, Jen. And I'm glad to have you on the phone. These are amazing people that, me and my wife, we fought alone for a year. and went on a hunger strike for 5 days in front of the Riley County Courthouse, got the Manhattan Mercury in the newspaper, and it was pretty pathetic. No one even, someone showed up and gave us water because they felt bad for us because it was 105 degrees out. But somebody else connected us with Jen, and we met Ann and so many other people through those channels that have been engaged in our lives and helped us get our families back. That I really wish that you would have won, Jen. And I really wish I could have done more. Unfortunately, for my situation, it could be seen as an excuse, but we got our kids back at the same time, and we live in Colorado, and I just don't want to see any good people give up, because the battle's not over. And you got a chance to see that even when you were like, you know, I'm done. I've given it my best shot. I'm leaving Kansas. And then within a few months, you had DCF knocking at your door for your daughter. And so you recognize that no matter how hard it is for us, and I mean, how many times in the duration of our case did I call you crying or call Ann crying and saying, I give up? They can have my kid. I can't do it anymore. I'm gonna hurt myself. I just can't. And you would say, no, Raymond, you won't, and you're going to keep fighting. And then 2 months later, what do you got to be crying? Be like, no. And that's why God puts us together, and it's not over yet.
No,
it's not. It's not over yet.
They're still being harmed. They're still being ripped out of their families. And we now know, by the way, statistically, factually, that kind of trauma to our young children causes permanent damage to their brain. We know that.
Permanent damage. And unfortunately, they have to bring that information out because they're trying to politically attack our president over migrant children. But it still remains. It's hurting those migrant children.
Correct.
But it's happening every day to American children, Kansas children, Colorado children, Arizona children.
I think
the science doesn't change just because they're Americans. And yeah, you're right. It causes permanent damage.
It does. Well, we know that now, actually, from an actual doctor that studies the brain. We know that. So here's what I want people to understand. I get a lot of messages. Sorry, I wasted your time. You didn't respond to me. When advocates are out there working for free, we most of us have to keep food on our tables too. We have to have a job. Raymond has to work. I have to work. Ann has to, we all have families. We all have grandchildren, and we're giving our time as much as we can for free. What irritates me is when I get somebody who thinks that because they've reached out to me once and I didn't answer their call that I owe them something. Well, let me be very clear. I don't owe anybody anything.
No, you don't.
I give what I can give when I can give it. And if that's not good enough, I don't know what to tell you.
And this is what we tell people, Jen. I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want you to get too far from that point because it's important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That when I had people putting similar demands on me and I'm fighting for my own family work, and my thing would always say, well, just come fight beside our side.
Mm-hmm.
Show up at the events, make the phone calls, march with us. And then, we had that one girl, I won't even say her name, came in, tried to set everybody, whatever. And then she kept saying, why don't you trust me? And I told her, I'll trust you when you're in the trenches with us, suffering with us. And that's what it comes down to. If you want, the reason we got so involved with people like you is because we determined we were just going to sit depressed. And the only thing we could do is if we saw another case, we're going to go out and we're going to serve that family while we're fighting for our own children. But we're going to direct our energy to changing the system. And our story went national, international, some of it bad. I mean, whatever, AP, you're still liars.
Right.
But,
they are straight up.
But it helped us survive. And so you want Jen to be engaged in your life and other advocates. Let's all work together fighting, not come help me, but how can we help each other? You know what I mean?
And it's not about necessarily the money. It's about just the energy. It's about,
it's draining. It's hard.
They always say there's safety in numbers, and that's absolutely true. And you don't have to go to jail. I've never been in jail for protesting because
I've been in jail.
Yeah, criminal. No, joking. But, you know, I mean, there's ways that we do things that I don't want to break laws. That's not my goal. I want to exercise my constitutional right. And, but what my point was, is if you're working with an advocate, and there are many of us, you know, you guys have to learn reaching out to advocates. You have to understand our position and where we are. We're not indebted to anyone else. We're doing it because we care. Now, if we can't come and sit in your courtroom, it doesn't mean we don't care about your case. What that means is we're already overloaded and overwhelmed, and we're doing it on our dime. So give those advocates the respect they deserve, you know, and don't give up. I tell people all the time, I've had people that say, I've called you like 30 times to get you just now. Well, that's what I tell people. If you really need to talk to me, you're going to have to keep trying until I'm free. Because whether I'm changing diapers or I'm, you know, issuing paychecks or I'm outselling a contract or, you know, I'm not just at everybody's beck and call. No one is, unless they're making money doing this, which I don't know anybody that does make money.
I know somebody that's trying, but we won't go there, Ann. We won't go there.
We'll do that on another segment. But
what'd you say? Did you say you were coming on the show again? Oh, how many people? And I want to see some comments down the road. So we're trying to get Jen to come on so that but you got to stop. You can't call me Raymond anymore. We've already had this talk. I know you think I'm crazy. That is my baptized name.
Okay, but God knows I know you, and that's all that matters.
We'll get there. Anyways, I want Jen on here as a co-host, and I think that it's important to do this work in any medium that we can, because even this can help people out in the long run as we archive these videos, as we approach subjects to help people. And I know y'all don't want to just see my hairy face all the time. So put some comments. If you want to see Jen on another show, you want to see Jen co-host, start sending some messages, putting some comments. I'd love to have her on another show. Because, yeah, and Ann too. But Ann won't ever show her face. She'll just call in. Are you still there, Ann?
No.
Did she go? Oh, no, there she is.
Well,
and understand now, Jen.
When you're breaking
this
news,
is why
that to me.
I want you to understand, though, and this is why we determined to call this show "We Hold These Truths," because we hold these truths that all men are endowed with their Creator for those things: the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's not just about family court. We're there right now. We're in that battle. But it is about the THC issue. It is about liberty issues. It is about children that are suffering. It is about what's currently going on in our world, because we're Americans and we're not a slave to anybody. And we want to see our country get up and be active people before they have to be active because your kids were stolen or your son was facing a ridiculous charge that would have put him away for life. Or whatever the reasons that got everyone I know into activism, or you're alienated from your kid. Do it before. And that's record. What the show is about.
So I always say this on every show I do. For families being affected, I don't care which way it is. I don't care if you're being affected by DCF. I don't care if your child is being charged for first-degree felony murder because he told someone where to get pot. I don't care what the scenario. Make sure you know what your recording laws are in your state and record everything. Everything. You never know when that will come to play. So learn your laws on recording. And the other thing I always tell people is look up jury nullification. We need to get educated. Knowledge is power. The only way we're truly going to stop this is to educate. We need to get louder. We need more people paying attention. We need more people to hear this message, because I don't know too many human beings that can truly know what's going on and walk away forever.
No, and that's what we're trying to do here. And so that's my challenge for people between our next shows and this week, that we want to continue to develop this. We want this to be a tool to utilize for people to be able to call in. And then you won't have to blow up her email all the time. If there's not a lot of people, you can call into the show. And they'll answer your question. But we
just
want
coming
to see
together at a regular interval gives people that knowledge that they can pass on. Hey, we couldn't get them on the phone, but they're going to be on Wednesday night at 8:00.
And then you can get in the chat rooms, and then you can begin to connect, because I honestly believe, and it wasn't because of our case and it wasn't because of Jen's activism, but that at the same time they took my children, Terry LaPointe of Medical Kidnap began her career in journalism covering state-sponsored child trafficking. It was completely independent of each other. And Connie Reguli had begun the Family Forward. Oh, Connie. I need just
Connie.
a shock collar so that Connie could push the button every time. Yes, and Connie began the Family Forward project, and Jen was full-blown into her activism. And all of these little universes begin to merge nationally. Yeah. And we're going to continue to do so.
And we're going to talk about Fools No More coming up this April.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do.
Hey.
Yeah.
Wait, I want to say something.
Thanks for telling me now at 8, whatever time it is on February 6th. I didn't even know this was happening. Let's talk about it.
It'll be the 4th annual Fools No More rally.
On what date, Jen?
Well, what day do you think Fools No More's on?
Oh, yeah. April 1st. That's why it's Fools No More.
So let me see what April 1st rolls on this year. April 1st rolls on a Monday morning.
A Monday morning. I tell you what, guys, we can pull this off because I get paid time off now, so I can get paid to go chase these friggin' politicians down in Topeka, Kansas. But anytime we show up in Topeka, it's a good time. And if this rally is going to pop off again, we all need to get together and do this, because I remember, and some of you watching may have been there for this. I don't even remember. It was a protest. It might have been Fools No More or something. But after we were all said and done, we were going over to the Celtic Fox, that restaurant across from the Capitol. Yeah. And me and the boys pull up, and we see all these women just frantic, and like Jennifer breathing smoke and fire out of her face. And we're like, what did we miss?
Brownback.
While they were all piling out, Sam Brownback, child trafficker, Governor Extremo, walked by.
And we started chasing after him.
And they chased him down. Now, you're talking the governor of the state of Kansas.
Yeah.
Shows how scared these people are of citizens
that
are serious.
Remember?
With their banners of arresting Brownback and stop kidnapping kids, and DCF is all of those. And he ran. And not only did he ran so fast with his security, like, what a coward. But it was hilarious, because it's like, we'll just pop up, and we're not going to let these people be just.
You have to admit, last year when we did the protest last year, I took us around the DCF building, but we went up to the appeals in the Supreme Court.
No, last year was really, we had Marissa Hamilton from Arizona, we had Cash Jackson from Illinois, and I really believe that was very powerful. And these people know who we are, guys. I have parents that contact me, Jenna's parents, that says, I have a case in Kentucky, and the judge told me to stop talking to Sarah from Schwab or to Jennifer Winn. And I'm like, excuse me?
Didn't Kobach, can we talk about what he said? That he didn't violate your rights, did he?
Oh, no, and you can pull that up on Pacer. These people know, because so Chris Kobach, your ex, his attorney keeps saying, well, Mr. Secretary, hey, Kobach, let me tell you something. You're not the secretary anymore. I don't even know what you do now, because you didn't get any political office. So if we may have lost ours, but you didn't win yours either. And didn't I tell you how many videos did I do say, Kobach, we're going to make sure you never get in office? I'm not saying we did that. I'm just saying, told you so. But anyways, so we're suing him for what he did, but we were trying to indict Brownback. And I'm like, so we were doing these petitions. We were trying to get a grand jury. And then Kobach used the Central County Sheriff to come harass our petitioners. And I outlined the whole story. And if you've been with us for a while, you know what happened because you were part of it. And when they filed their response to my motion, they're like, oh, we didn't do that to Mr. Schwab. We did that to Jennifer Winn. I was like, what are you talking about? You guys are going to admit that you're complete jackasses, but just not to me.
Yeah.
These are the caliber of people that we're dealing with. I
should have sued him, but there's so many standing in line to sue him. I
know. Kobach, where are you working now? I heard Carl's Jr.'s $12 an hour.
Hey, I'll throw him on a mower.
Yeah. Hey, Jen, we'll throw you on a mower. Chris Kobach, you could work for Winn Enterprises.
Under the mower.
We'll give you a chance to redeem yourself, buddy. Okay, we got to go. We're getting goofy. So, hey, Ted, are we good? Do we got any calls?
No, we're good. Just you guys and Ann and myself.
All right.
Ted,
well,
I just want to say thanks to Ted for all that he continues to do. I mean, he came to DC. He does everything he knows to do. And sometimes, we have to put up with all the drama and the crossfires and blah, 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 but he's steady. And it takes a lot for all of this, just as minor as it is to all of you. It's really not. It's very complex. So I want to say thank you to Ted.
Thanks,
I
Jen.
do too. And his multimedia broadcasting company, definitely help him out. If you down the road start supporting our show, Ted's doing this because he believes in what we're doing. He's helped a lot of other people, and this movement's been going up and down and up and down, but we're all going to keep fighting because I know Ted has been a victim of this system. We're victims of this system, and we all got a lot of pain that we got to fight through to be able to unify with each other so we can go after the real devils, which are these people that are trafficking children in the name of child protection or family preservation or divorce court or whatever it is. These people are doing it. So this is a really great show. I'm glad you came on, Jen. And we're going to be here next Wednesday. I hope Jen's going to join us. We're going to talk to her through the week, see if she wants to join us for a couple of shows. And we're going to start going topical again. Now that we're on here, me and Jen are going to take some feedback and see, because I really believe one way to do this would be to create a series of videos, including live videos, where we're taking calls and talking to people about, hey, what do you do when CPS shows up at your door? I did the one a few weeks ago with Connie about effective counsel. We want to get Marissa on here to talk about how to attack this in a legislative aspect. And so we want this to work. We want this to be a resource. I'd really love to have Jen.
We really just want this to end. That's the goal.
Yeah, DCF, you want to get rid of us? Quit stealing kids. Yep. And guess what?
I'll go back to my life. Yeah, I'll go back to my life.
We don't want to do this. But we're going to, because we don't like what you're doing, because it's evil. And so you're stuck with us, and we're coming for you. And that's all I got to say about that.
Okay.
So thanks for joining us this evening, and sorry about the technical difficulties. We're just going to keep getting better, and here pretty soon we're going to set up some format. If people want to support the show, we're going to channel it back into the show so that we can get good equipment and figure out how to get the word out better, sponsor some ads, whatever. But it's been a real good evening. And Jen, thanks for coming on. And you still there?
I'm
She
here.
is totally there. I knew you were going to answer. And sorry you didn't talk.
She's my best bud, and
she's always here. This is so symbolic. Is this how it always is? Jen and Raymond being so freaking loud, and Ann's like, "I'm here," because she is always there doing the hard work. She's a soldier, and we love you, Ann. Thanks for sharing that story. So that's our show this evening. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Take care. We good?